We're just so excited to see all of the faces on the side. It's been a long time of being inside by ourselves, so it's great to have this event, though we're saddened that we were not able to physically tour these spaces this year. We are excited to bring you the design crawl virtually. We're hoping to deliver this as a series that will continue on. We're tentatively scheduled for a continuation to stop 2, July 30th, and stop 3, August 27th. So stay tuned for those events. We're extremely excited again to be able to adapt and adjust and bring excellent content to our members and really continue to serve our design community in this new way. I am honored and thankful for our sponsors and the continued commitment of our chapter to support this event, and would like to thank Mohawk Group at Ruby sponsorship level and Pacific WRO at the Diamond level. And here to say a few words on behalf of Pacific WRO is Sandra.
Hi, you guys. So I'm Sandra Jakubowski with Pacific WRO. We are sponsoring the first virtual design crawl, which is exciting. If our name and our logo is new to you, that's okay. It's new to us too. Pacific Furnishings, WRO, both Herman Miller dealers in our marketplace, we've come together under one roof. We're now one big Herman Miller furniture dealership, hence the new logo. And so what does that mean to you guys, and what is with my really cool rainbow graphic? What I want you guys to get to know from us is that with our A&D partners, we are a one-stop shop. Our goal is that you guys can come to us for not just Herman Miller products, but for hundreds of other vendors that we work with all over the world. We know that we're not Amazon, but this process of working with commercial furniture is complicated, and that's what we're here for. We want to help you guys navigate anything and everything related to furniture, whether that's actual product, looking for options in various price points, sourcing from different groups, all the way down to the nitty-gritty of furniture specifications and details, to the service side of it, where we're actually procuring the furniture for people, going through contracts and dealing with installation and project management. So soup to nuts, we want to be everything for you guys, from procurement and knowledge all the way to install. And then just so you guys know, since we're all under one roof now, we have a new showroom that's coming on board in the fall. We would love for you guys to visit. Obviously, we're not open during the current situation, but we will send information out via social media and email when we're open. We'll have fun things for everyone like this Eames Pride Hang It All. So enjoy this awesome virtual tour of the Meier and Frank Building with Sarah, and thank you guys so much for joining.
Sarah, before you get started, I'm going to backtrack real quick. I was so excited, I forgot to thank our very valuable annual sponsors at the platinum level, Mohawk Group, Pacific WRO, and ZGF Architects. Thank you so much for your generous sponsorship. Okay, Kyle, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Holzkamp. I'm your current chapter president. I just wanted to quickly say that if you do have any questions during the presentation tonight, feel free to type those into the chat, and I will be coordinating to pass those along to Sarah. We'll also have a short Q&A session at the end. So type those along, send them my way, and we'll get them taken care of. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Sarah Weber with Bora Architects.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen. Can I just get a confirmation that people can see it from somebody? Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
Great. Thank you. It's always, I never know. I can't really tell. So thank you for your patience. And yeah, I just would reiterate, like Kyle said, one of my favorite parts of the design crawl is just getting to engage with people and interact with everybody as they go. So please don't be shy about using the questions feature. But just to reintroduce myself, my name is Sarah Weber. I'm an associate principal, and I was a senior interior designer on the Meier and Frank project. And I'm just one of many team members and people that helped to make this project a success. So please take a second to read about all the contributors and team members that were part of this. Of course, we want to thank our client for really having the vision to give this building some new life and help return it back to the city. And our other collaborative partners and consultants in working in such a dedicated fashion on such a storied building. Historic buildings come with their challenges, and everybody was super, super committed to overcoming them to make it a success. But I thought I would start today by like walking you all through some of the building history, which really started to inform our research-based concept and how we went about finding that information, and just kind of, you know, how all that layered into the final project. The Oregon Historical Society was a wealth of resources for us. We sent a team member over there for like a couple of days, basically, to search the archive for pictures. Of course, there's historic drawings that we can get from the city, etc. And we learned a lot of great things, but I pulled forward just a few of our favorite points from the building story that really started to inform our process. I think the first one was that we learned that the building was actually built in 3 phases over time. There was a block that was a quarter block that was built in 1908, one that was built in 1914, and another that was built in 1930. But our impression of it today is just that it's one big building. You wouldn't really notice that, but it actually starts to reveal itself on the interior in some interesting ways that I'll talk about later. Other things to note would be that Meier and Frank was a renowned department store company. I mean, this was a huge building. The whole building at one point was dedicated to the function of a department store at one point in time, whether it just be shopping or storage for the store. We learned that they were really known for like huge sales, and people would just come flooding through the doors, as you see here. And when they couldn't find each other, they would make a plan to meet under a clock that was in the store. So that was like before texting, where you could say like, I'm by the front door or I'm by the escalator. They would make like a landmark in the space that they could meet and go shopping. And the other thing that a lot of people know about it is that it was home to Santa Land. And it also featured a monorail train that went around the department store that you would, believe it or not, put your kids up in there and they would like go on a ride throughout the store while you were shopping. And that actually remained in the building at least through the 90s. And the Historical Society has one of the cars now. And then we moved on to really do like a overall material, pattern, texture, language, like an overall taxonomy of what was original in the building that we might want to keep and that we might want to celebrate. And we really worked with the State Historic Preservation Society and our historic architectural consultant, Peter Meier, in really understanding this and understanding what we might want to keep and bring forward and celebrate. I just want to say thanks to Elsa and Diane for showing their faces right now, because it makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. So kudos, thank you so much. Okay, now there's Sandra. Okay, thanks everybody. It's just, I'm tired of being in a room by myself all day. I need to see some folks, so thank you. So with the history studied, we then went on to kind of understand where the building sat within the context of the city today, right? Like, majority of our scope on this was an interiors project, but also it was wanting to make it really an appealing space for our clients so that they could have successful leases in it, whether it be retail or commercial office on the upper floors. But we really just wanted to understand, like, as a whole, what kind of changes can we make to increase that curb appeal? And the one thing we saw was that basically Macy's had rung the perimeter of the building with display shelves and display windows, and it was impenetrable from the outside of the city. This is a shot taken pretty much from Pioneer Courthouse Square, which, as I think we all know, is really that, like, the living room of Portland is, you know, how it's coined. And it's a real gathering place in the city, but the building wasn't engaging with it at all. And we thought that, you know, that was one thing we could do to try and reconnect it with the city and kind of give the building back to the city in a way, because it had such connection to a lot of our culture and the citizens at one point in time. I think the other thing I'd point out is all of the awnings ringing the perimeter of the building too. I mean, when you were walking under those at the street level, you were really disconnected with the scale of the building and all of the wonderful patterns and details that were happening on the terracotta tile facade around the exterior of the building. So with all that research and the goals outlined and kind of understanding where we were at and where we were going, we developed a concept statement that guided us through the project. I'm not going to read this all to you, but the key points are that we were going to acknowledge the cultural importance and nostalgia of the building. And we were going to create a cohesive interior and exterior experience. And by doing this, to authentic asset in the real estate market, you know, we're going to make it hyper specific to its location in terms of its character. That we're going to therefore return some of that story of the building into the city culture and invite people to come into it in a more meaningful way. And in order to help guide how we were going to go about doing this specifically, the team developed 4 design principles that we kept in mind as we went through the project. To reveal historical texture, so if we found any existing materials in the building or any interesting patterns or textures through the demolition, we were going to make a commitment to reveal it, but not just reveal it, but also to showcase it, to make it a major part of the project. That where we were going to make interventions in the building, we were going to make it modern. We weren't going to necessarily try and be super matchy-matchy with a lot of the ornate details of the time, because we just weren't going to get there, but we could make it modern interpretations of it. And in doing so, and as a way to, you know, tell the story of the building, we were going to create unexpected details throughout. You can think of those as like little Easter eggs throughout the space. And actually, I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions. I lost my ability to see if there was any questions, but no questions. Okay, great. I'm going to keep going then. So first, I'm just going to back out and kind of resituate everybody with where this building sits within the city. I had mentioned it was near Pioneer Courthouse Square. It's pretty much kitty corner from it. Also across from Pioneer Courthouse, both very important landmarks in the city. And it's surrounded on 3 edges by either max light rail tracks or bus stops. And then, you know, the mall is over in this lower right-hand corner too. So it's really, we like to talk about it as like it's at X marks the spot in the city of downtown Portland. And how can we plan our entry and provide other entries into the retail suites that we were blocking out, so that as many people could access it as possible. Macy's had kept the entries here, like if you guys can see my hand, this southeast corner, they kept the southwest corner entry, they kept the northwest corner entry, and they had a small one here at one point in time too. But what we had realized was that there was previously 2 entries at the east and west facades. I don't know if you guys remember, some of you might, but Elephants had like a pop-up in one of these at one point in time. But they became really prime opportunities to just get people to get into the building at more locations and really build off of the traffic that's coming along the light rail lines as well. We chose to, after several studies, we chose to maintain this location here with a big red triangle as the primary access for the building, just due to its location and proximity to so many active points within the city. So that didn't come without its challenges though, because when you enter the building, let's say you're on, to simplify things, you're at like 0 inches. But the elevators, the entry to the elevators was down 54 inches from that. So we had this challenge in front of us about how do we navigate that grade change gracefully, and how do we provide a 54-foot long ramp in the space, and not make it feel just utilitarian, make it feel like it's part of the space, it's part of the experience of being there. So I think, you know, those 2 things really drove a lot about our design. And I think the one thing is major feature of our design is there's a screening element, there's a screening element between these 2 runs of ramp to help kind of scale it within the space, but make it an equally exciting experience to be on that ramp. So before I move into like the more professional shots, and we'll kind of start at the entry and walk through the space together, just like we would if we were at the design crawl, I just wanted to remind people a little bit like what it looked like, what the lobby looked like. So in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the entries from the street, and we'll say that's 0 inches. And then you like were immediately on a stair going down 54 inches. You didn't like have a chance to like kind of catch your breath and understand and orient yourself to the space. So pretty early on, we knew that this had to move to provide a more gracious and celebrated experience. You can see the elevator cabs down here. I guess I could use this point to point out there's 3 elevator cabs that work off of the lobby, and there's 2 elevator fronts that you actually can't get in, but they were required to stay as part of the historic landmark status of the building. But they actually serve the 9s. So it's just a fun fact about the length of that and how that kind of drove a lot of what we were doing. And the stair that's here is actually where the escalator used to be. So we reused that opening down into the basement. Okay, so yeah, so it was the shoe department. The lobby was essentially the shoe department and a little bit of the makeup counter, if you can think back that far to what it was. You can see there was the stone surround of the elevator cabs and the like historic detailing of the call buttons, etc. that was around that was required to stay for historic preservation. And just a reminder of, you know, what it was like to be up close at those windows. And the awnings that were there too. So on the exterior of the building, you know, we kept that main canopy and the detailing that's associated with it, did some lighting upgrades. We actually were really fortunate on this project to do like everything, like soup to nuts. So we did the signage, like I handpicked all the records in the record player on the coffee tables, like it was like a whole thing. So a super rare opportunity for us that we were really excited about. And then just a couple photos on the right to just highlight the difference of taking off the awnings on the exterior and kind of inserting some really minimal canopies into some of these more historic and ornate surrounds, and how it just really starts to highlight the existing detailing that's there. My screen's over here that the show's on, so if I'm looking over there, that's what I'm looking at. So when you step inside the building, just think about this as like that cohesive experience inside outside that we were trying to achieve. As you step inside the building, you are also, I should have said this earlier, there's also a coffee shop in the lobby to help activate it as an amenity for people as well. Your first impression is that there's a coffee shop in the space, and there's like a security desk and a concierge off to the right. We had always planned for there to be a coffee shop in the space as an activator, but we didn't have somebody come on board actually until we were in CA. We didn't have anybody signed up to come on board. And when part of their lease criteria was to have a little bit more of their own branding and detailing be part of the space, so that they kind of had their own identity. The purveyor that came on board was Upper Left Roasters. And so I think you guys probably remember touring their space a few years ago. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but their space had a lot of clean lines, a lot of wood in it, really, really simple. It had some angles to kind of acknowledge their location in Ladd's Addition. And so we were really challenged at that point to merge these two aesthetics together. We were able to move forward with walnut, just that deeper, more referential Art Deco wood species, and have it a little bit more figured in order to kind of tie into, like, create that more of a rich texture in the space. And through its materiality, really stand apart, but also just not feel completely separate with the palette of the rest of the space. So just a few other views and details of this. You know, we custom designed this table to start to bring in one of those angles as well. It also correlates with a floor pattern we were already doing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's a slight angle on the counter where you pick up your latte. There's a totally unnecessary but cute brass clip in the corner of the pastry case. And we also had the opportunity to design the menu board, which has a magnet recessed into these wood slats so that these steel powder coated letters can be replaced on it pretty regularly. And so, yeah, those little details like the brass and whatnot just really start to help tie it all together. So after you got your latte, you can kind of like turn to the right and check in with your concierge buddy for the day, see how he's doing. This is Zach. He's awesome. And you guys would have all gotten to meet him, but unfortunately we can't. So maybe another time. But when you see the concierge desk, you start to understand, you know, there's some wood paneling on the side that helps to merge the two experiences together. There's wood that appears on this built-in sofa down together. A little bit more on some of this brass and stone detailing and those unexpected details that are happening throughout the space. You can also see the clock, the meet me under the clock that was required to stay in the lobby or stay in the space and part of the project. So in keeping with the spirit of meeting people under the clock, the lobby is a logical place to meet people a lot of times before you go do things. So kept it as a central focal point of the lobby. The elevator cabs on the right, if you remember the picture I showed earlier, the gyp line was like right above the call signals for the elevator. And when we were going through demo, we didn't know what was above that. Like one of the big questions was, is there anything above that? What are we gonna make that wall? And Peter Meier kind of suspected there might be stone above it. So we were able to do some sample tests and see that it was there, but we weren't exactly sure how high it went. So that was kind of a good surprise, a fun surprise to see how much of it we could expose and just use to lend to the natural character of the space as well. Here you can also see the exposed ceiling. So exposing the ceilings became a really interesting way to express the texture of the project and talk about its history a little bit. Because the building was built in 3 phases over time by different contractors and construction folks, there was also 3 different systems used for pouring the slabs. So it changes upstairs versus what you'll see in the basement. And I'll go over that in just a little bit too. One of the things that, I'll talk about that one in a second. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. Okay, the screen. So the screen on the left that I talked about earlier, here you can see the ramp and how it kind of switches back on itself. And we started to scale that experience and the depth of the space by using a large screen element that also is like an art piece or a backdrop, and also a good counterpoint to the warmth of the stone on the other side of the lobby. And it's a really interesting experience to be on both sides of that screen. And we could have just chosen like any off-the-shelf perforated screen pattern, of course, but we really saw it as a great storytelling opportunity for the building and a way to merge some of that ornate detailing that's happening on the exterior with the interior. So from the building study that we had done earlier that I mentioned, we had a good idea about what the patterns were on the outside of the building. And we started with a process of studying the shapes and different ways that we could simplify it just to clean it up and make it a little bit more modern. And bring that into the interior of the building. And the screen it's tall. It was tall. It was a big structural feat, and Arctura worked really well with us. And we're really committed to finding ways to make this happen and keep the details clean and simple. So a couple slides ago, you can kind of see the ampersand in the background. The client had latched on pretty early for the branding of the building as being the same as it was named previously, but really about the use of the ampersand to join the 2 names together, and kind of using a more blocky font to indicate the era of time it was built, but also to contrast that and acknowledge some of that more ornate past. So we really built on that throughout the project. The use of the ampersand, kind of the scripted numbers and fonts, kind of these bold blacks as well, was part of their branding for the building. So we were looking for ways to incorporate that throughout. The ampersand made of bars ties into this bar grid feature that kind of directs your attention down to the basement. It's kind of a journey that takes you down to the amenities level. So really starting to tie all those elements together. And we worked with flatline fabrication on the detailing and installation of this piece and of the directory. So this is just down at that lower level of the lobby, looking back towards the coffee shop. This serpentine sofa is 45 continuous linear feet long. We worked with Absolute Procurement and Made Studio in the design of that. And it was really important to be able to have a piece of furniture down there that really was a destination piece, like to get you down the stairs, to activate the lobby, to hang out there. And also just to keep it clean. We didn't have a lot of depth in the lobby before the elevator cabs. Like, right, we needed to kind of preserve this line for circulation to the elevator cabs and down the stairs. So it really starts to become an anchor piece and keep all the furniture hugged into it as well. And then I'd also point out here, there's a pattern on the floor that repeats upstairs and then on the floor and then on this coffee shop level and on the lobby level. And then you'll see it again downstairs, more used as a wall graphic. But we also saw, you know, terrazzo inlays. We're going to have an inlay in the terrazzo. It's an opportunity, again, to have storytelling and some meaningful detailing in the space. So we were really looking at, you know, this building was built in phases over time. It's something that is just pretty impossible to see now. How do we bring that story forward in a way or make people kind of question why something's there? So the square pattern on the floor, and yes, those are my fabulous shoes. The square pattern on the floor represents the overall block. So the image, you know, shows the inlay on the right, the diagram of kind of how it came to be. The overall square representing the overall block, and then a square in the upper left-hand corner for the 1908 phase, a rectangle on the right for 1914, a lower square for 1930, and then the dashed lines representing two eras of repositioning for the building, 2006 being the conversion to the nines, and 2018 being this project. So we're just kind of, you know, adding to the story of the building rather than hiding it away. So now we'll move, okay, questions? Are there questions? I see 11 on here.
Not
People
necessarily.
just saying hi.
I have a question
Okay.
for you, Sarah, actually. Since there's so many of the photos on this project, was your favorite part designing it or modeling the photos for the space?
I like all the Bora interior photos if you look hard enough. I'll point out something funny I did later too, but I of course I loved designing the project and working on it, working with our team to be really creative about what we could do here. And we all felt really passionately about needing to be authentic in the space, that we just had this really great opportunity with the outside of the building having such a great story that it would have been a shame to, like, you all of a sudden are entering like a warehouse space or something on the inside. It became really important for it to be a cohesive experience, and just everybody's commitment to that, I think, was really strong. Anything else, Kyle? You want to grill me more?
No, but there is a comment. Ella wanted to compliment you on your shoes.
Okay, thanks, Ella.
Fab shoes.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so now we're heading down to the basement. I think a couple slides ago, I have to click again. A couple slides ago, I pointed out, you know, here's the stair down to the basement. So we're going to go down that stair now. And this is, again, where the escalator was. And we're going to go through some cross bracing, and we're going to enter the amenities level. And, you know, this is like the #1 question, I think, when you're like redoing or repositioning buildings, is what are the amenities? What's like the best amenity to provide right now? And we had done a bunch of research, market research, about all the amenities that were out there. And we had worked with CBRE and the consulting aspect of this as well, to kind of like see what would land, you know, tenants at a nice cost per square foot for the client. And what we ended up with was, you know, it wasn't about having like something different or new than everybody else had, but that there were some amenities that really worked, like spin and yoga rooms, cardio and weights, bike rooms, like the essentials that people needed. And we decided to commit to those, but the differentiator would be to like offer something about those that was above and beyond or next level. So like the spin and cardio room and the spin and yoga room, the cardio and weights room, they actually have trainers on staff and have classes for people to be part of. They are really well supported with locker rooms that are like fully tiled shower enclosures that they offer like shampoo and soap and towels. For the bike parking, there's several different styles of bike stalls to accommodate different bikes that people might bring to the site, and there are different abilities to lift the bikes up into the rack or not. Like, let's say a parent has a trailer on the back, they're not going to lift the bike and put it on a wall hanging unit. So we have plenty of like lower bike staples and things like that. And I think the biggest thing people talk about, and I know this is kind of a boring slide, but is this drying and changing area. So there's actually drying closets, which I just don't know why more places don't have these. So that we have like rainy enough commutes here, and I run to work. I don't bike to work. Sometimes I bike to work, but you have all this wet gear. Where do you put it all day? Do you take it up to your office? You don't want to put it in a locker to get musty or not dry. So there's actually some drying closets here that people can put their gear in and dry off. And those have been like the biggest hit of the project. Like everybody that tours it, I've heard great things from them. So it's the little things, I think, is the message in all of that. The other amenities that are more accessed and can be used in like more of a shared capacity and really serve in place of tenants having to build out such large spaces on their own is a big conference or all hands training space that then can also open out and connect with a larger multi-use space that that tenants could use just as an extra breakout room. If they want to get away from their office for the day, they could have like their own catered event there. So we've supported it with a catering closet, catering room, catering kitchen. And, you know, they could have an informal lounge presentation or a more serious presentation too. So I think those things were really successful for them. And then there's lots of tenant storage downstairs. I will say half of this basement is hotel storage too, because the building's actually a condo arrangement. So our client owns levels, basement D, believe it or not, there's 3 more levels of basement below this, and they're very creepy. Actually, they've just been abandoned for years, and there's tools and things down there that are too big to get upstairs. And then the 9s is their own as well. I see a question, how do bikes go down there? So yes, there is a ramp from the street that kind of goes down the staircase in addition to the stair. So that if you need to, you can kind of roll it down the stair, or you can roll it up, or you could just carry it. And this empties it, this opens up onto Alder. Okay. So before seeing the photos of the basement, just wanted to remind you what the basement looked like again. I always think the before and afters are like the best part. So this is where you'd buy your furniture or your mattress down here. And then here's the door in the back that went to Santa Land, where Santa Land ended up being over a period of time. And then a picture of what Santa Land was above that. So we were pleased to find in the demo that there was a little, back here, there was some existing terrazzo floor that we were able to resurface and kind of patch and infill the holes, and then kind of just supplement that with a really simple concrete elsewhere where that terrazzo wasn't. But that terrazzo was pretty much running throughout the basement and had been covered by that porcelain tile over time. So the demo crew did a really good job of getting a lot of that tile out without damaging the terrazzo. You can see that all hands space beyond, the multi-use lounge in the front. And then this was a really sweet moment to kind of juxtapose the different types of construction in the building and this level of refinement that the building's also seen over time. So these seismic braces were added in 2006 in addition to the conversion to the 9s. And on the ceiling, you can see here 2 types of slab pouring coming together. Metal pan on the left. Actually, you can see 3. So here's an infill panel here from where the escalator was. So that was kind of part of our project. This is a metal pan ceiling and then more of a board formed ceiling. And you can see the different sizes of columns in the space too. So this is like a super interesting moment in the project where all these things came together. And you can kind of see the repeat of the graphic on the glass. And I think it's super interesting how it ties into the seismic bracing as well. So just another shot of that, looking back at the catering kitchen. A shot of some of those amenities. So amenities, again, kept pretty basic, but just tons of lockers, digital storage, things like that. The image of some of the fully tiled locker rooms. And then I guess I also just wanted to point out in the spin yoga cardio weights room, we were really challenged for a long time to understand, like, how do we get good lighting in these spaces, because it's a basement and we don't want it to just feel like a basement. So we actually just decided we're gonna like lean completely into this, and we're gonna go dark. Like, it's gonna be different, it's gonna be moody, it's gonna be an escape, and a totally different mindset to get to in the building. But it allowed us to use lighting in some pretty dramatic ways to support those functions too. Okay, and that's it. I'm so sorry I took more of your guys' time. I know everybody's probably been on calls all day, so happy to answer any more questions and stay as long as you're wanting to stay.
Sarah, yeah, just to echo that, please feel free to stay. We're going to continue this conversation if you do want to have it, and we'll continue this probably till 5:45. It looks like a couple questions coming in. One is from Sandra. How did you narrow it down to that block graphic? Did you consider other options?
Yeah, I mean, we really started with what is, you know, terrazzo has a certain square footage of area that it can cover before you need to put in a terrazzo inlay. So we really just started by understanding what that was, and then starting to just deal with some of the geometries and ease of fabrication. I think we got really lucky with the terrazzo installers, and I would love to hear if somebody else has worked with an amazing terrazzo installer, but we know that we've been pretty challenged in the Northwest for a lot of people that have experience with terrazzo. So one of the things that we found about the block pattern versus some of the other, they're like geometric scrolls that are outside of the building that are another pattern we looked at, was that the block pattern seemed pretty reasonable to install, and it was a part of the story we could bring forward that we weren't telling already. Like on the screen, we were already telling a texture pattern. So it just became a balance of design and wanting to tell like the story of the space and what we thought our fabricators could achieve easily and on budget. We actually had that pattern a lot smaller at one point, and it was like blowing the budget through the roof. So I think keeping with something simple, we found that sweet spot. Elsa says, how many different fabricators worked on the various brass detailing? Well, Elsa, I would actually tell you that most of the brass you see is actually anodized aluminum. So brass, super expensive, super soft. So the screen that you see in the lobby, and maybe I can pop back to that, the screen that you see in the lobby. Am I sharing my screen still? Damn it. Terry's like, no, I see you, Terry.
We just lost your screen, but the tall,
Okay.
You're talking about the tall dividing screen on the ramp, right?
Yeah, I was trying to go back to it so I can show it. So the tall dividing screen is actually aluminum, and it was laser cut, which super interesting. If we were in the project together, I would tell you that the back side of it, there's like a little bit more of a scribbly texture to it, because when lasers go through, they kind of make like a flashback. And I don't think it doesn't detract from the design. It just kind of adds a little bit more to the texture. But yeah, so that's all. This is all aluminum. These bars are aluminum. The ampersand is made of a steel bar, powder coated. Actually, the only real brass is the top of the handrails and the terrazzo inlays and what's original. So yeah, it was, we had a lot of different fabricators working on it, to answer Elsa's question. The exact number I'm not really sure about right now. So Trevor says, what was that different vertical screening material used on the stairwell leading down to the basement, and what was the beam above the clock in front of the elevator block? This one here, Trevor, it was just concrete. It actually was a little damaged and we needed to patch it, and just kind of in the spirit of layering on the history of the building, just choosing to leave it exposed. I think this is something, I mean, if you were on the tour a long time ago, we explored with our Airbnb Portland project too, was historic buildings being the next level of history of that building, and not just wiping it all out. So we were really embracing that. Were there any other floors renovated in the building? So our scope was to get floors 2 through 5 ready for commercial office tenants. So it was basic upgrades to systems, installation of restrooms on those floors as well. And then getting those retail suites that I showed on the plan for level 1 ready for people as well. And since then, I think there's been a lot of full floor leases that have gone into the space. I think there's only like 1 floor that's not a full floor lease. Yeah, returner. What's your favorite moment in the building? I think my favorite moment in the building is just being on that sofa. It's such a presence in the space. I don't think these pictures actually like just showcase how lovely it is and what an attractor it is to go sit and touch and just hang out in the space. I think the other thing is just all the warmth from all of the brass tone from stone is really helpful too. I enjoy your choices in auxiliary furniture and finishes. Who do you specify? All lovely. So all of the tables and chairs, okay, so let's go back. I can say it all. All of the seating choices you see in the coffee shop are Geiger crosshatch. And it's slipping my mind who the tables came from right now. I wish Emma was on the call. Emma, if you're on the call, pipe up. And then in the lobby, we have Muto chairs and tables, and then SMG Collective helped us with the rugs. So these are custom rugs. The sofa, again, is custom. And in the basement, we have a mix of Andrea World, Chad House. That's all I can remember off the top of my head. But these buffet tables were custom. These coffee tables were custom as well. I guess our approach when we design multi-use spaces is to make as many things modular as possible. We wanted them to be able to like push all the coffee tables together at one point in time, or to be able to pull these seats apart and make like one big sofa if they needed to for an arrangement. But that drove a lot of our decisions too.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I do have to say, I'm going to echo your comment about the blue sofa. It is a terrific place to hang out, and upper left makes absolutely fantastic coffee. So highly recommend it. Now we're going to hand it back to Ella to wrap up this evening. Thank you all for coming again, and stay tuned for what's next.
Thank you all for coming this evening.
Guys, it's good to see new faces.
Thank you all for joining. This was such a great event. I want to remind you of the continuation of the series. Please join July 30th for the number 2 stop and August 27th for the 3rd stop. Those locations are TBD. Huge thank you to Sarah Weber for sharing. Thank you to Bora for making such a great project. This is just such a fun evening, and thank you for showing your beautiful faces. Good to see you. So take care, be well, and join for the next stop.
Okay, bye guys. Thank you. So good to see you guys.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye.